Hi there, I'm Coach Sam, and in today's video I'm going to teach you the best proven, most effective ways of tackling your teenager's behaviour. Now, as a mother of 5 myself, I know just how challenging it can be to raise teenagers, and some of the traps that we can fall into as parents, where we're having arguments, conversations aren't going quite the way we want them to, and it feels like we've tried absolutely everything we know how, and it feels like nothing's working. So I'm here to help you to avoid some of those challenges and get a real good relationship with your teenager, open up communication so that they'll listen, and help them to make some better choices. Okay, so stick around for the next few minutes. I'm going to walk you through them. Now, the first one is a little routine for managing most emotional behaviour. So the first thing you want to do with this one is to acknowledge that you can notice that they're upset or they're angry, and just say to them, I can see you're upset, and then stop and listen. Because ordinarily what happens is we fall into a whole conversation, and just by doing that, it shuts down your teenager from even wanting to engage. So what you can say is, I can see something is wrong, what's happened? Okay, and then stop and just listen to hear what they've got to say. And then once they've said it, what you want to do is just wait for 5 seconds, and what that does is show your teenager that you've listened, but you're also thinking about what they've said. Okay, and then repeat back to them what they've said, just to check that you've understood what it is that you've heard from them. And then once that's happened, name the emotion. And now this is really important. If you think back to when your child was about 2 or 3, and you had those little outbursts from them when they're getting really upset, they might be frustrated because they can't get something done, or they can't get something they don't want to share, tantrums, imagine those sorts of things. And when that used to happen, what we used to do was pick them up and say, oh honey, I can see you're so upset, give them a cuddle, and we'd say to them, oh, you're feeling, and we'd name the emotion for them. So you imagine like your child when they were little had fallen down, and you pick them up and say, oh sweetheart, you've fallen down. You might kiss it better, you give them a cuddle, you say, oh sweetheart, that hurts. You're taking your teenager through the same process, but in a way that's more for an adult, because this is the issue that you're facing. As an adult, you can make logical decisions, you've got names for emotions and all sorts of things. Teenagers don't yet have that bit yet. They're feeling something, but they haven't been got the words to put to the emotion. So we're going to help them to do that, and that's going to open up the conversation. So first we're going to stop and listen. We're going to wait 5 seconds to show them that we've listened. We're going to repeat back what they've said, and then we're going to name it. So we're going to say, oh, that you look really sad, you look really upset, you look really angry, and I understand that you're angry. Now what that's going to do is open up the conversation some more, because once they can see that, 1, you've listened, and 2, you can understand reason why they're angry, they'll elaborate. Okay, so then you get a very short, and it is a short window to say to them, do you want me to help you with this? Okay, first few times you do, it's going to be such a strange thing for you to do and a thing for them to do, that what might happen is they're going to say no, and off they'll go. So what you do in that moment is to say to them, that's fine. Give them something to do, whether it's let's go and have a shower, have a snack, go and play the game, whatever, because again, you know your teenager better than anyone. Let them go and do that, but agree to come back to it. So say to them, go and do the thing for about half an hour or so, and then agree to come back to the dinner table, the sofa, or where have you, and have the conversation. And just say to them, look, I really understand that you are, and again, name the emotion. Let's talk about it. So you can ask them questions, and this is what's really key. As parents, especially when they're younger, we like to give them solutions. So if you imagine a case scenario where your child's had a fallout with their friend at school, and you can see they're upset as they've come in the door from school, and then you say to them, sweetheart, you know what, I can see you're upset. Now the important thing when you do that is to be no more than an arm's length away, and to get their attention. So you might either tap them on the shoulder, you might call them in their name. As long as you get the eye contact and you're not too far away, that's what's really important at this stage. And then you can say to them, do you know what, I can see that you're upset. What's happened? That sometimes is the difference alone to open up the conversation, because normally we get into, I can see you're upset, just tell me. And that in itself is what starts the argument. So we're asking them all the time, rather than giving answers, we're asking them questions. That's going to help them to do the thinking and help them to start problem solving without having the argument or to shut down. So let's run through that situation again. Sweetheart, I can see something's wrong. What's happened? Okay. So once you've got through that stage, you're going to wait for 5 seconds, having listened to what they've said, and then just repeat it back to them. So they can say, oh, I had an argument with Joe, and you will have waited 5 seconds and say, oh, you had an argument with Joe. I can see that you're really upset by that. I can understand why you're upset by that. Do you want me to help? You're asking them, it's an invitation to, because again, as parents, sometimes what we can do is think, oh, do you know what? You follow up with them every week. It's no different here. What's different? I've told you not to talk to that person. You've got all these other friends, and all this other stuff can come into the conversation. So rather than do that and stop giving them answers, we're going to give them questions to help them find their own answers and help them to problem solve. So if that feels like it's too much, just say to them, do you know what, it's fine. Because you have to also recognise just being at school all day can be stressful in itself. And again, it might not be after school, it could happen any time. So give them time away from the conversation and give yourself time to just think about how you want to handle it. It can help you to manage your own emotions as well, so to take the break. So for about half an hour or so, tell them to go and do something. You take the time yourself to go and calm down or think and process what it is you want to say differently, and then come back and say, do you know what, I remember, so you said upset about this situation. Talk to me about it. Let me see if I can help you. Now, an additional trick you can throw in there is to give them something to eat, or give them a hot drink, or if they like hot chocolate or those sorts of things. You know, again, your teenager better than I do, so you'll know what snacks and things you can get in them. But the trick with that is, because you're putting something into their stomach, all of their energy physically has to go to their stomach to digest this food. And that brings all the energy down. It calms the whole situation in their mind and their body down. And so they're more open to having conversations. Okay? So I'll just walk you through that one more time. Notice that they're upset. Ask them to tell you what's happened. Pause. Repeat what you've heard. Name the emotion. Okay? And then ask them if they'd like you to help. If they're not calm enough yet to have the conversation, or they're not ready yet to have the conversation, give themselves a break, give yourself a break. Give them a break, and give yourself a break. And then come back to the conversation later. Don't leave it any longer than an hour or so, because sometimes what happens is they would have gotten with something else, and they might have had a whinge to their other friends or something, and then it becomes something else, or they just don't want to deal with it. So make sure you use that window to come back to them. So that's the first one. The second one is this. And this is something that as parents we can think we're doing but not actually be doing. Is to praise our teenagers. But again, because they're teenagers, you've got to do it in a very, very specific way. Ordinarily, when we notice that they've done something, we might say, oh, well done, or good job, or something like that. This is something we call descriptive praise. That is to explain exactly what it is we've seen, but also why we like it. Sometimes it can be difficult to get your teenager to do anything with you, to come and help around the house, to have a conversation, to do anything as part of a family, or just to talk, So at any moment, if it's come down and they've said good morning, if they've come and sat down next to you, even if it was to ask you a question for money or whatever, notice that they've done it. And this is the bit that is hard, is to catch those windows when they've done it. If you've noticed that they've been playing with their sibling, even again for a couple of minutes, or they might have helped around the house, they've kind of done something slightly out of the normal, let them know what it is. So in my example with my eldest, one of the things that was hardest to get him to do was to come and do anything with the family. So if he so much as came in the living room while we were all there for a couple of minutes and sat down, I just pull him to one side, or I go and sit next to him. So again, it's really important that you make eye contact and you're not too far away. And you say to them, do you know what? Thank you. I really appreciate that you came in and you sat down with us. That really made me feel like you want to be part of this family. I really love it when you do that. Now that's going to sound crazy, I imagine, but what you've done there is do things, and it sounds like a really subtle thing to do, and it sounds unbelievable, but trust me, when you try it, you'll thank me later. You've told them exactly what it is that they've done that you like, and you've also given them a reason to do more of it. So what that does is increase them doing it, because there's a lovely, wonderful part of us as human beings. It doesn't matter what age you are, and doesn't matter how awkward it feels or how resistant we are to it. We all love to hear when we've done a good job. So when you've been told exactly what you've done, that is great, and how it's made someone else feel, what happens naturally is you'll do more of that thing. So the more you catch those windows and you say exactly what it is and tell them why, you're increasing those behaviours. Okay? And I'll give you an example. You can imagine again when your child was younger and they've drawn a picture or they've done something amazing. You make that big fuss and we're like, oh, how amazing is that? And we make a big fuss. It's doing that same process when you see them almost shining and beaming out of themselves, but doing it in a more adult appropriate way, because again, the teenagers older, they don't want that big fuss and it almost feels patronising and not genuine. So it's a similar way you'd like it as an adult. I really love it that you've done that. That was a really amazing thing you've done. I really appreciate that you've done that and the reason. Okay? So that's the second one. The third one, and this could be probably one of the most important things in the world, and this is one of the traps I know I certainly fell into, is timing. Timing is absolutely everything. Okay, if you want your child to come and do something, whether it's a chore, come and get ready or whatever, two things you can do with timing is, one, let them know in advance. So if for argument's sake you're going to go out and you want them to be ready for a certain time, is to tell them in advance, maybe the day before where possible, this is what's happening and this is the time it's happening. And then at intervals, remind them. Okay, so if you again using that same example, if it is that you're going out, remind them and say to them, remember we're going out today at 12. You can maybe, if they're in bed or what have you, wake them up maybe a couple of hours before, let them know they need to be ready by this amount of time, and then as the time's getting closer, you can just say to them, maybe now you might want to go and have the shower or something. That avoids you nagging as it's getting down to that last hour to try and get them out the door and get ready and do all the other things you need to do. And it also avoids having an argument. Okay? The other thing with timing is to time when it is you want something done. So if it is you want them to help do the dishes or the chores or something like that, and it's after dinner, and ordinarily what happens is we'll say to them, okay, after dinner, I want you to do the dishes, and they'll be like, yeah. Teenagers. And then dinner's finished, you might help scrape the plates or whatever, and then you're almost clock watching to see how long it's going to take them to do it. They might have stormed off to their room and forgotten all about it, or tried to get away with it because they're so used to doing that, and then, well, if mum's going to do it, if dad's going to do it, or whoever's going to step in and do it for them. So what you do in this instance is to give them the space to negotiate. Teenagers are becoming adults, although they're not quite adults, they're becoming adults. And so we need to talk to them in a more adult way, but also show them with our behaviour what it is they're supposed to be doing. So we can't fall into these traps where we're shouting, we're screaming, we're getting irate with them, we're feeling annoyed, and then showing them that as a normal behaviour, and they still expect them not to. Okay? So timing is really important, because what you can do is invite them to have a conversation and a dialogue to negotiate. That if, for argument's sake, you're thinking, you know what, it was a really heavy meal, maybe they can go and play for half an hour, as long as they get the dishes done before they go to sleep. You've had this space to have a conversation and negotiate the situation. Now that's not always going to work, which is why, again, going back to prompting them and saying, remember after dinner, I want the dishes done. You can give them a window and say, well, if dinner's at 6 or so, I want the dishes done by 8 o'clock. And even better, give them the reason why. And it might be, you know, everyone's going to sleep, then you don't want the other children to be woken up, whatever that is. Explain it to them, because then not only are you asking them to do something, you're giving them the reason why. Because as teenagers, they're starting to pull away from us and form their own opinions because they want autonomy and independence. But what they don't understand yet is how you earn it. So giving them things to own means also giving them the space to negotiate how they're going to do it, when they're going to do it. So timing is everything. If you know they're in the middle of a computer game, they're on the phone to their friends, whatever, you can imagine a situation where if you're at work and you're in the middle of something or in the middle of a conversation and someone just walks in, interrupts you and says, can you go and do this thing now? You might have a few choice words yourself. So having that same respect for them and their time and space and what have you, but also showing them that this is how we do things in life as you get older. So you're going to time when you're going to ask for something, when you're going to ask them to do something. Yeah. And also give them some space and some wiggle room to negotiate with you. So they might say to you, okay, I'm in the middle of the game, give me 10 minutes. And you can prompt them 5 minutes in and say, look, remember it's 5 minutes. And at 10 minutes, say, look, 10 minutes is up. Now, if you want to, and they're saying, look, I'll be finished again in a couple of minutes, then that's up to you if you want to do that. You said, no, we've agreed to the 10 minutes. 10 minutes is up. Can you go and do it now, please? And again, with your own behaviour, you're modelling exactly what it is you're expecting from them when they can't wiggle out of the situation anymore. So you're avoiding arguments by having given the information, you've given some space for negotiation, you've prompted them. It means you don't have to get caught into, because what this does is it shuts down the long conversations we have when we can slip into nagging, slip into remembering all the times they've done it before. We get upset. It causes so much friction. So we can avoid all of that by just saying, do you know what, I'm going to pick my moment. If I know they're in the middle of a game, you can say to them, when you finish that part of the game, or could you save it, let me have a conversation with you. Or if they don't have a conversation with their friends, ask them to come and talk to you as soon as they get off the call. Timing is everything. So the first one is ask the question, clarify and repeat, wait and listen, and then ask them if they want to help. So that's helping them to manage their own emotional behaviour. The second one is tell them exactly what it is you want to see more of. When they do anything that you want to see lots more of, rather than focusing on all the things they're doing that you don't want to see and all the things that they're doing that's wrong and all the things that upset you, that can only lead to an argument. You can only fall into traps with that. Focus on the things they're doing already, even if it's a small thing. Tell them exactly what they're doing that is brilliant. And what will happen is, because they feel better about themselves because you said it, you're going to get more of that from them. And then the last one is to remember the timing. Okay? Now these are just 3 of the best strategies. There's a lot more. And I'll be running some workshops and be able to give you some more. There's actually some sheets and stuff I can share with you that talks about these ones I've just shared with you here now. So what you can do right now is to hit the button below, book a free half-an-hour consultation with me, and tell me about your specific situation, and I'll walk you through it and share these with you. Okay? I'll look forward to talking to you, and I'll speak to you soon.